honestly, if you're watching this, congratulations! We managed to get to the point where I've been asked to create another video about Metal Gear Rising. More specifically, about the 3 bosses that I didn't cover in my initial video. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not like I was going to ignore them outright, but when you've got a DLC boss, a giant mech that's a branch off the glory that is Senator Armstrong, and Blade Wolf, only one of those has really seemed to be interesting enough to talk about. That being said, I'm forced to eat crow because there's more to these 3 bosses. So, like I said before, the bosses of Metal Gear Rising are deeper than you think. So,
buckle the f*** up, little doggy.
I'm gonna be completely honest, I wasn't expecting so many people to bring up Khasim.
Check the internet lately. The memes.
And well, sure, why not? Khasim, the Desert Storm, a former Marine before he was turned cyborg. He's actually the boss in Metal Gear Rising's DLC where you play as Blade Wolf. This is honestly a little bit different from when I talked about the main bosses and even with Armstrong because I had more fun time when I was able to compare and contrast the bosses against Raiden. That isn't to say I can't do the same with Khasim, but there aren't a lot of scenes with him. But he is an interesting character based on what we can see. And hey, if Armstrong can be an interesting character with only about 2 scenes that actually have him, then hey, anything's possible with Khasim too. For example, Khasim was originally planned to be in the main game. According to Yuji Korikado, he was also going to be a member of the Winds of Destruction in the main game as well, but he was cut before production began. Still, he is considered to be the 4th Wind of Destruction, and since so many people wanted me to talk about him, he was apparently really popular. Now, to make it clear, Khasim isn't exactly what you'd call a villain of sorts. I guess, maybe? During the DLC, we learned that his goal is to bring freedom to the people of Abkhazia, even if he has to spill blood to do so. In a sense, that's what separates him from the rest of the Winds of Destruction on a fundamental level. Aside from being a different kind of cyborg, he's the only member of the Winds of Destruction who believes what he's doing is the right thing. Granted, his idealism is what makes him a compelling character, because it also makes him a hypocrite, because he's forcing that freedom onto others and using his might in order to do so rather than to help others. This can also be applied to Blade Wolf, in which Khasim is a good foil to, but we'll get to that in a few seconds. Back to the hypocrisy, it's interesting that Khasim preaches about freedom, but the whole point of the Wolf DLC is to get his own freedom, and obviously as a boss battle, Khasim stops Wolf. So, does the man truly believe in freedom, or is it just a convenient excuse to get him a fresh coat of blood on his chainsaw axe? Regardless, it's also a fun little fact that Khasim, in the world of Metal Gear Rising, was a part of the Second Iraq War, which ties into the supposed force of freedom, since one of the greatest criticisms of that war on the US was the amount of force that was used in that combat. Am I even allowed to talk about the Iraq War on YouTube nowadays? Oh well, in any case, Khasim is actually a very good foil for Blade Wolf, aside from the themes of freedom that I'll get more into when we reach the Blade Wolf section of this video. Both characters are on Desperado's leash, with Khasim being led with the prospect of freedom, while Wolf has the threat of his memory being erased. Both use chainsaw-toothed weapons, and if you look at the heads of Khasim's mech body, you'll see that they resemble Wolf's original head. There's more to the boss fight as well. Not only does the fight have this dynamic fall between the two, I'd say it's a symbolic of the ending when Blade Wolf rips Khasim out of his mechanical body. Quite literally, actually, since Khasim is grafted to the bulky mechanics that he's using. It has this tiny, cruel irony, if you ask me, as Wolf grants Khasim a freedom of a different kind. The freedom from life! Oh God! Oh God! Khasim is also obnoxious, at least to Mistral. Hell, for her, the whole point of the Blade Wolf DLC is mostly a convoluted plan to have Blade Wolf kill the guy. If you look at Khasim's fighting style, his Desert Storm moniker is represented quite well, as his combat style has him using the thrusters to gather speed and bum rush his opponents. And if you know anything about Desert Storms, while they can whip around sporadically, they are very dangerous and can lower visibility and cause debris to be whipped around. You can even see that aspect when Khasim jumps into the air, brings down his axe, and causes the concrete to spike up, allowing Wolf to sneak around it and get a surprise attack in. And man, Khasim can take a chainsaw to the chest really well. I guess we should talk about his theme song next. The Hot Wind is Blowing. Right off the bat with the lyrics of the song, we're really seeing a side of Khasim's character. He's just a soldier, he's cruel, and he can only follow orders. No matter the cost, no matter if it just goes against his belief of freedom. Khasim is a simple man. A soldier who's just doing as he's told. He believes what he's doing is justified, and is using that to excuse any cruel actions he may have. He is a tool. Whether he knows it or not is irrelevant to the character, because Khasim believes in his cause, and that's demonstrated that he shows pride within the name that he has, as a wind of destruction. To point something out, much like a lot of the other bosses in the game, the lyrics don't actually appear at the beginning of the fight. No, they start when Khasim is about to rev up his final attack and Wolf is slicing through his robotic body apart. Which, if you ask me, is a little telling of something else. Most of the other bosses that follow that trend of music will often have the lyrics show up at the final stage of their fight, not in the final desperation of attacks. The music in Metal Gear Rising is not used carelessly. If the game has a reason to change up the music, it does so for a reason. Now, I can only speculate on this with my interpretation, but the way I see it, there are two reasons for why this choice is including in the lyrics, aside from just being pure badass to have that happen during the scene. The first, this could be a reflection on Khasim's part, how he viewed his actions throughout his life, and that his pride as a wind of destruction is basically being trampled upon by this mangy mud of a character.
Mangy, goddamn son of a...
There's always been this theme of soldiers throughout the entire Metal Gear series.
What are you really after?
A world where warriors like us are honored as we once were, as we should be.
That was Big Boss's fantasy.
It was his dying wish. When he was young, during the Cold War, the world needed men like us. We were valued then. We were desired. But things are different now. With all the lies and hypocrites running the world, war isn't what it used to be.
Are you familiar with big chunks?
It's true. In our modern-day society, the value of a soldier in the public eye isn't what it used to be. Soldiers were seen as modern-day knights a long time ago. And then, as reality began to sink in, the cruel actions of the everyday soldier became more and more apparent to the public. And as Armstrong did say,
Oh, relax, Jack. It's a war on terror. We're not out to kill civilians. Extremists, lawless gangs, madmen.
Khasim is a soldier doing what he's doing. For freedom. And who's going to be against freedom? What kind of anti-American BS is that you're spouting? There's always an excuse. There's always a reason to justify the horrible actions. There's always something. Even in his final words, Khasim still clings onto the excuse that he kept on spouting.
Piece of shit! What about the freedom of this whole country?
Freedom cannot be forced on others. It must be earned for oneself.
And he denies that Wolf says to him that freedom can't be forced upon others. Now let's talk about my second reading of the song, and how that's a bit more similar to a theme of Jetstream Sam's theme, the only thing I know for real. After Khasim's death, the Winds of Destruction needed to hire a replacement for him. And who better than Jetstream Sam? The whole point of Sam's song was a loss of identity and knowing only how to fight, as a soldier of sorts. Khasim, despite his false understanding of freedom, did have a motive to keep him going, so it's interesting to think about how his replacement is the direct opposite of Khasim. One more thing to note about is Khasim's death. Despite Wolf not being Raiden, there's symbolism in Khasim being ripped out of his mech suit and sliced into salsa. Much like how a piece of trash is caught in the wind, Khasim was thrown helplessly in the air and... Godspeed, Khasim, the Desert Storm!
Idiot!
You know, I debate if I want to talk about Excelsus on here, because while I was able to get some meaning out of Metal Gear Ray, I thought the same couldn't be said of Excelsus. Boy, was I wrong, and I'm glad I was. The first thing we need to look at is its name, Excelsus. And I'm pretty sure I'm butchering its name, but, give me a little break.
Making the mother of all omelets here, Jack. Can't fret over every egg.
Which by definition means high or lofty, and is also the name of the species of a dinosaur, the Apatosaurus. This version of Metal Gear was specifically made to overwhelm cyborgs in the Metal Gear universe, which had become much more prominent on the battlefield. So in layman's terms, bring a bigger gun! It's fun to think about it because Excelsus is actually pretty representative of Metal Gear Rising itself, since when the game first came out, people denounced it for not being true Metal Gear, since there was more of a focus on high-octane action instead of the stealth that this series was known for up to that point. My smartass aside, considering the game has its characters and a continuation of the story of Metal Gear Solid, I have to disagree with that. But back to Excelsus, it too was not on Metal Gear. If you listen to the codex talking about it, it turns out it was given the title of Metal Gear simply because of a promotional reason to make it sell better. Oh gee, where have I heard that before? A new updated version of something that people really like given the name in order to elicit interest in the obviously inferior product? Wow! Joking aside, I can totally see Excelsus being effective against most combat cyborgs. Not only does the thing have massive weapons it can use, but in a more domesticated area, it doesn't need to worry about seeking solo targets since it can easily just wipe out the entire town if it wanted to. Granted, one cyborg is able to take it out. Then again, Raiden's just a badass in this game, so...
Let her rip!
And now we get to the important part of what I want to talk about, the theme song of Excelsus. Collective Consciousness. And to be fair, it's more of a secondary theme to Senator Armstrong, since not only does he pilot Excelsus while the song plays, but it's also the song that plays when you fight Armstrong during Jetstream's DLC. The message is pretty blatant, that people will often throw away their free will in order to have a safe life. Why bother thinking for yourself? Why not let the government take over and provide for you? Needless to say, in today's culture, it cuts a bit too close for my comfort that people are willing to surrender what little freedoms they have just so they can be comfortable, ignoring the others that value freedom that they have. Welcome maxims for those with no faith, without guiding principles of their own. Give yourself up to the whole, no need to better yourself. You're American! You're number one! It's a thought process that has been plaguing our internet landscape for years now. People don't want to actually work for success. They don't want to lose what they have. They don't want to risk comforts. Even all it takes is a simple thought to unwind it. They'd rather just be a collective of something bigger. Why bother thinking for yourselves? Why not let the politicians do the thinking for you? Why not let the big media companies do that stuff for you? Why not let YouTubers who have hundreds of thousands of followers tell you what to think? After all, they're the good guys. They wouldn't lie to you, right? Humans are weak. You, me, everyone. It's easy for us to take the easy way out in our world. Life is pain, and we can lift the burden even just a little bit. It's more preferable than suffering. Right? It's the right thing to do, correct? Who cares if you're seen as a tool by those who see you as useful puppets? They don't care about you. They just use fancy words and empty promises just to control you. So, what do? Do you just give up your freedom? Do you think you're smart for choosing this path?
What good is an intellect if you can't use it?
Exterminate!
I hope you guys have realized there's a theme going on in this video. Freedom. It's a subject that many of us take for granted, and ironically enough, as I said before, there are those who are happy to give up their freedoms for safety. Even if they take away the freedoms of others in the process, they don't care. I stated in my original video on bosses that Jetstream Sam is my favorite boss in the game. But he's not the most important boss, nor is he my favorite character in Metal Gear Rising. No. That honor goes to Blade Wolf.
For myself.
As a boss character, Blade Wolf is the first same-size boss you can actually face that doesn't prevent you from actually winning. So yeah, I don't count the first encounter with Sam as a boss fight. Anyway, as the first boss that you can encounter in the game after Raiden's updated look, Wolf certainly makes the entrance.
Show yourself.
And you are? I am IF Prototype LQ84I.
Like, aside from Jetstream Sam's shit-eating grin, Wolf here has the most impactful introduction onto a boss fight, even starting up the running gag of the game where Raiden's chin gets buzzed on. It should be obvious, but Wolf is the one boss that Raiden can interact the most, because after you slice and dice him, Raiden gets docked to fix him up. And I gotta say, while I wish there was more chemistry outside the codecs are plenty entertaining since most of the time we got Wolf being a straight man to Raiden.
Good boy.
I will ignore the condescension and take that as a compliment. You are welcome.
And while the humor can be dry at points, if you actually do the codecs, you can get a good grasp of the two's relationship and Wolf's character. And you learn a bit more of Wolf's past and how he works.
As a machine, I had no contract and no rights. I was kept in the dark. On the other hand, some of them treated me like a pet or as a child. Just as a parent passes on their memes to a child, so I was exposed to numerous influences. Do not be distracted by the advertisements. You are not here as a tourist.
Sure. I'll just buy a quick souvenir or two for Rose and that'll be it.
Raiden, we must hurry.
Remind me to teach you about sarcasm sometime.
I understand your attempts at humor. I simply do not find them entertaining.
Even though he's an AI, Wolf's programming was designed to resemble that of a human brain. Learning, so that's why you get him to using words such as I think or perhaps, because even though he's a machine, he's one that was made to be like human. And he can be a dick to Raiden.
I guess we don't really have time to catch up.
It does turn out, though, that Wolf feels that he owes Raiden his life, and learned a lot from Raiden during their travels. Hell, there's no programming that Wolf has to follow Raiden, and Raiden has even outright stated that Wolf can leave whenever he wants. It's actually part of the reason why I like Wolf and Raiden as two characters. Wolf is as close as a human as a robot can get, and has a sense of honor to him, meanwhile Raiden has pretty much given up his humanity quite a few times in the past. Wolf, however, has one fatal flaw. He wasn't cruel enough like a human.
Holy moly!
I mean, that's debatable if you ask me, but hey, who am I to say otherwise? You also need to remember that Raiden kinda has a thing against AIs, even at one point alluding to the Patriots who, in the world of Metal Gear Solid, had used them as a tool for their goals.
Actually, there is something I have been meaning to tell you, but I just couldn't. I think you should know, though. On Saturday morning last week, I saw a guy leaving Rosemary's room.
So Raiden still has a distrust towards artificial intelligence. But eventually, Raiden trusts Wolf and gives the doggo true moral considerations, even going so far that Wolf has the right to choose his own path. Much more than what his creators, Desperado, ever gave Wolf. When you consider the context of these two characters, it's actually pretty deep, especially when you consider that Raiden also knows what it's like to be nothing more than a tool for those who are above him and treat his life as nothing more than disposable garbage. But the real beauty of Blade Wolf is the fact that his story is following the themes of freedom. And despite the numerous conversations on what man uses that freedom for is weird, Wolf determined that there isn't an easy answer for why men raise their swords on the battlefield for freedom. And until you actually meet him, freedom was just a word to Wolf. He had no way to disobey orders, or else Wolf's memories, the whole of him, would be deleted. Even the DLC, when he attempts to escape, it was nothing more than a cruel test from Mistral to get rid of Khasim.
You deceived me.
Such a mighty intellect indeed.
Then I have lost.
Shake. Shake.
So let's talk about his boss fight. Wolf is actually what you'd call a glass cannon, meaning he can dish out a lot of damage if his attacks hit you, but he can't really take a lot of damage in return. This makes sense when you consider he's the first official boss of the game after Ray, but I'd argue that he's much more dangerous than Ray, especially with his attacks. Take for example his strongest move, in which Wolf pins down Raiden before stabbing him with his chainsaw. That's an attack that can rip off a quarter of your health on normal difficulty. Blade Wolf is what you can call a wake-up call boss. He is supposed to test the player's abilities with the new mechanics of the game early on so they can understand that these are important. Parrying, manual blade mode, Zandatsu, or even the lock-on for some cases. Hell, I've even seen some players lose to him because they just treated Metal Gear Rising as a simple hack and slash with no actual complexity to it.
Your intellect is far below the human standard.
Wolf is meant to be easy, but he can wreck your shit if you're not ready. There's a trope of summoning minions to do your dirty work with bosses, and most of the time when you watch videos that talk about this trope, people hate these kinds of bosses since it weakens the flair and style of them. But that being said, I think it works here since not only is Wolf one of the earlier bosses in the game, but also because it works with his theme. Wolf is he's a wolf, the leader of the pack. Having his underlings appear to fight Raiden is something that the leader would give orders to. Now granted, the real star of this boss fight is the music here! I'm My Own Master Now is a song that I hold close to my heart. It's one of the reasons that's pushed me to do more and more of these kind of videos since I, and I would assume a lot of you, are feeling locked down because of life. Held back by those who stand above us. The chains of reality holding us down from our potential. A lot of us feel chained up, forced to do things we don't want to, whether it be from responsibilities, the world itself, or someone who would rather see you as a pet. It's unfulfilling in life, even more so when you're locked into something that actively pounds on you as a person, like a chained up beast. It's soul-crushing, and you desire something more, like a wolf hungry on the hunt. It's a desire that Wolf howls to the air, something that we all desire deep down. True freedom. To not be led by those who don't care for us as people, so we need to plan for ourselves, breaking the chains that bind us down and hold us back from our true potential. Sure, there will be pain because of this, but nothing ventured, nothing gained. You need to take a chance and become your own master now. You can't just rely on someone else to make the world better for you. Leave the losers who are holding you back behind. Become your own master now! It's not going to be easy, but nothing that's worth living ever is. Every day you will be in a fight. You won't come out of it unscathed, but it's something you need to do for yourself, to find true happiness, to find your true potential, to become free. This is a lesson that Wolf had to learn for himself in his DLC, and it wasn't until he challenged Raiden that he actually did get his freedom. I mean, sure, he was sliced and diced into little bits, but throughout the rest of the game, he made a choice to stay by Raiden's side, because throughout the arduous journey, he followed Raiden on. He grew as a character, and funnily enough, became more human as a result. Blade Wolf is an important character, not just in the game of Metal Gear Rising, not just as a kick-ass boss fight, but as a character that really spoke to me as a person. Someone who taught me that just how beautiful freedom can be, how easily it can be stripped away from you, and how hard the world can be when you don't have said freedom. And Metal Gear Rising is an important game as well. Sure, it's a really fun game where you can slice people into shiitake mushrooms, but it's a game that culturally is very important. But people like to write it off as the funny meme game.
My name is Monsoon of the Sussy Imposters. What the fuck? Emergency meeting.
Sure, you can enjoy the memes and the funny videos that are made from it. I never want to take that away from anyone. But I'm just here to point out that Metal Gear Rising can be an important game if you just look a little deeper at even just the music. But ultimately, Metal Gear Rising spreads its message in the way that it should be with games. Through subtlety, through its music, through its characters, through its action. It doesn't lecture you unless you want it to, and even then, it can be amazingly entertaining. And with that, I thank you for your time. If you made it to this point in the video, type in the comments, "I'm my own master now," because if we get about 10,000 comments and 10,000 likes, there's one more character that I can do a real deep dive into from Metal Gear Rising, and I think it's important that we do talk about him. That character is Mr. Lightning Bolt himself, Raiden.
Well, if it isn't Saucy Jack. Just a little too late, as usual.
Thanks for watching. I'm MangaKamen, and let her rip.